I think, as many of you know, back in November it was Thanksgiving week. Several folks from our congregation, Mike and Amanda Mason, and Charles and myself, were privileged to go down to North Carolina, where the floods had absolutely devastated the whole area. And in particular, we focused around the Burnsville area. And just today, some of us are getting back, but yes, no. Yesterday, most of the folks got back. Charles, you got back a little bit earlier, I think? About noon. So it was a full week. It was quite an extraordinary week. As we heard, I know, back in November as well, when God is there in the midst of that kind of mission field, amazing things do happen. So thought we would, as part of the message today, would like to invite those who went. We'll begin with Charles, if he's good with that. Charles, I know, dude. He'll begin, then we'll ask Herbie, and then Allison, and then Sandy, okay? And they'll come up and share. Thank you, Charles. And we'll just use this mic because it works.
So, as the pastor referred to, we were able to, in Thanksgiving time, go down. This trip wasn't much different, I guess. At least for me, it was, though. I went 500 miles to get help that I didn't even know I needed. Something said way early by Craig. If you want to make God laugh, show him your plans. Everything I planned went wrong. I just couldn't make it work. I wanted to get so much done, and there was other things that had to be done. I wanted to leave early so I could get down and do some work to the RV that was problematic, and that didn't happen. I was going to do that on Monday while everyone was traveling, and that got pushed off to Tuesday. And I got down there Monday thinking, I won't do much. Boy, was I wrong on that one. We packed a bunch of trucks and moved a bunch of stuff. And then there was some work to be done on other people's vehicles and RVs. So just happily did it, didn't think anything of it. Just get it done, let's move on. Tuesday rolls around, I get put on breakfast. So my plan was to leave way early Saturday or Tuesday morning to get down to Fletcher's to get it fixed. My truck fixed, and that didn't happen. We had a good breakfast that morning, and just went later and later, and just came with it, just rolled with it. They say, pretty much enlighten yourself in the chaos, and just go with it. So I'm going, and we get it done. I get back Tuesday, and everybody had a great day. They did so much. All the happiness is going around. Everything's doing well. Wednesday rolls around. I'm like, here we go. We're going to get to work. Pick our site. I get lucky enough to work with Sandy and Allison. We go back up to B-Log where we were up in the mountains. And we got a couple what I think are going to be simple tasks. They're going to be quick and easy. And they're working already hard and doing their thing. And they'll talk about that. And I was tasked with putting a set of steps in a ramp in. Got it. I had another gentleman with me. We're like, okay, let's go get some materials. Yeah, they're going to send us to Lowe's. Yeah, not such a big deal, except it's like 52 miles away through the mountains. So by the time we got there, I drew up a plan. I got everything going. Here we go. We go get the lumber. We get back. It's like 2:30. Everybody's supposed to shut down at 3:30 and go back. So it was like Wednesday. Didn't get nothing done. I've been here since, this is just not working out. I'm forcing it. I'm pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. My attitude's getting a little poor sometimes because I'm just weak and I can't get anything done. Thursday shows up. Okay, this is the day. We got everything we need. We're going to get it done. We go in, and there's some things that have been, happening in the backgrounds with my daughter, my mother, and stuff like that. And I'm not really paying much mind to that. I'm like, focus here, don't look at this, look over here. And we're trying to get everything done, and everything's got to change. The plans that I had wanted to do to make it work had to be changed. And I'm like, I don't know if it's going to work. So we start going, and I'm scratching my head, and I got Randy with me, the gentleman was with me all day yesterday, and he's a retired police officer, me being a retired fireman. It was like oil and water, a good way. We bantered back and forth all day. It was good time. It really was. And I'm getting tired. You know, I can't get this done. I'm trying to get this all done, and I'm like, I don't have material. I've ran out of material. I need 4 more boards. And I'm going back, like, okay, I can't take all day tomorrow to go get it. I got to get them tonight. So I got to get back, and I'm like pushing and pushing. I am pushing and pushing and pushing, trying to get this done. And I had a pretty good epiphany. I was pretty beat. I'm like, I could just let this go right now and just go home. And Pastor came to me. He was like, you okay? I didn't hear that. I heard, what is wrong with you? And he was like, let's talk. And I'm like, I heard, tell me what's going on. And I opened up. And we talked, and it was real good. I had to go 500 miles to talk to the man I see on a weekly basis. Didn't know how it was going to work. I was so discouraged. I'm not going to get to the work site in time. We're not going to be able to get this done. We're fighting the rain. I've already worked one day in the rain. And the next morning, it just opened up. Come to find out, there's a lumber yard at the base of the mountain. It's less than a mile from where I have to go up to the mountain. Sure wish we'd have known that on Wednesday, you know. We pick up the boards, we get some other things, and, you know, up to the travel we go, and I'm still scratching my head how this is going to work. You know, I'm not a craftsman. I can put things together. I have a pretty good idea. And we had to make changes. We were going to do it this way, and it went this way. It was going to be this long, and it became this long. And now the ramp was put in. We're trying to figure out how to get it there. And this time, you know, it's like, we got to get it done. We got to get it done. And the harder I pushed, the more it hurt. I couldn't bend over. My knees were hurting, you know, from trying to kneel on the decks to put the deck boards down. And it was just miserable. When I finally just went, instead of pushing, I gave it up. And at that time, I felt so much better. I couldn't believe it. I was, you know, just didn't understand it. When we had dinner Friday night, and Ivan and his wife came, and they were just so appreciative that everyone that had done everything, and just couldn't believe it. They talked about how for months they couldn't get it done. I'm sure they had plans. My biggest thing was I'd learned, you know, you want to make God chuckle? Show him your plans. Boy, did he chuckle on me, because it was not the way it was supposed to be. And I just, you know, really, I was just great to be there. I'm, you know, proud that I was able to be included. I'm thankful I was able to be included. Rivers Ed's ministry and NALC's delivery response team, they just do so much, and they don't even realize it. And getting so much done, you know, whether it's to your plan or to his plan, it was different. And I need to learn how to enlighten the chaos. I come from a world of managing chaos. You know, that's what happens on a fire ground, and this was different. So I was very, very proud and very thankful to be there. So.
You sound set. Pardon?
Good morning. Allison and I arrived at Burnsville probably Monday afternoon, a little after 3. Got set up and everything and got squared away. Tuesday came breakfast and everything. We had different assignments by divine intervention, I hope. Allison went one way and I went to another way. I went to a little place It's called Relief, North Carolina. The first Tuesday, the first trip in there, it took over an hour and a half to get to this place because the roads are still in various degrees of being repaired, reopened. Bridges are, some of them are left intact, other ones are not. A lot of the bridges that we used didn't have the side rails, the headers on the side. It was just a flat deck. It was put you in mind of going back to farm lane. But after Tuesday, they opened up another portion of the lane, and then from then on in, the rest of the week, it took us probably a half an hour to get up 8 or 10 miles into the mountain. Relief was a small community in the hills of North Carolina. During the 1900s, when America was growing, they needed wood. So they ran railroads all over the place, and of course a railroad doesn't do good on the mountain, but so they laid them all down into the valleys along the river bottoms, the creek bottoms. A lot of times they were right beside the creek, and that was what this community was. It had at one time a general store, a house for the railroad workers when they came in and laid over, they could load their stuff and then head out, take the lumber everywhere that they needed it. I was fortunate enough to work with a fellow, the local fellow, by the name of Bruce. He's been there quite a long time. The first 2 days we were piling or unpiling rubble and everything. The federal government says that the county has to take the rubble. The county says, well, we'll take the rubble, but it's going to have to be separated. It comes from one pile, goes in separate trucks, goes to another pile altogether. So that's probably a governmental thing, I guess. So we were there separating the blocks out of the wood and everything. And a lot of times, all these people have left is a pile of rubble in front of a wet pile of rubble in front of a flooded out house alongside a muddy road. But every time we passed them, they always smiled and they waved at you. So the other part of the week, Tuesday afternoon through Friday, we went to one of Bruce's house. There were plenty of people there. We did insulation work. We put a porch on and did the top of the roof and railing and everything. And I was probably one of the last because we finished up the railing Friday afternoon. So, like I say, a lot of rebuilding going on. There was dump trucks coming in there about every 3 minutes, following each other as close as they could and dumping. The railroad they were trying to get restored, a lot of places was washed out completely. They had all their equipment that I've never seen before. It was fascinating to watch it work, but they were working from when we got there to probably when we left, and we still seen them on the road coming. There was a lot of the devastation that we've seen in different stages. There was one that really particular. There was a car sticking out of a side of a mountain, and this car was probably, I guess 13, 15 feet in the air. But it wasn't like a regular car that you've seen flooded out. The paint was perfect, had good tags on it, good tires on it. It looked like it was a roadworthy car. It was a fairly recent car, early 2000s. And I asked Bruce, I said, how did the flood stick that up there? And he said, no. He said the landslide come and stuck the car hood, and then later the creek rose and took out the dirt underneath it, and there's his car just sticking up like a kid's toy. So I looked at it, I said, so what you're telling me is at one time, the ground level that we're standing on was up there. And he said, yeah. He said the creek had widened that that wide. At some places, the creek was only 12, 15 feet. It expanded to two and a half feet, or 2.5 football fields wide, 8, 10 feet deep at some places. You want to say anything about Bruce? Bruce retired from Raleigh 10 or 15 years ago. Him and his wife moved to Burnsville, and while they were there, they bought a house down in Relief. It was a house, and it was hooked to the general store that had closed in the early 70s. Actually, it was a store / post office. He said when the postmaster got ready to retire, no one wanted the job, so he pulled the door shut, locked the door, and walked out. So Bruce bought the property and everything in hopes of restoring it, putting some old coal cars on it. But the house beside it was the house that we worked on. He had his daughter and 2 grandchildren and her fiance. The bridge that was fairly close to it acted as a gate to hold all the debris that was coming down the mountain. So it wasn't nothing. If you go down the road, you'd see a tree with a big root ball with stones and mud and everything, and this root ball was the size of a pickup truck. The tree itself was probably 30, 35 inches, and they were just laying alongside the roads going in and out like giant lollipops. But back at Relief at this bridge, they got hung up in the bridge and caused a backup. And Bruce's daughter and grandchildren and her fiance got the call. They had like 2 minutes to grab everything and leave. 2 minutes ain't a lot of time. You know, you can't even get a McDonald's burger for 2 minutes. So, I mean, unless you're sitting on a dentist chair, 2 minutes ain't very long. You have to think, you know, what are you going to grab? Who are you going to take? Where are you going to go? Unfortunately, they never made it out of the house. The house with them in it was swept down the river. Their bodies were lost for a few days, I guess.
40 miles in there.
Yeah, his daughter's body was found 40 miles downriver into Tennessee. So Bruce is very intimate with what happened, and he is connected well with the people there, being he was there for a while. He told me that he didn't eat for over a week after he got back to where they were to try to find it and everything and stuff like that. So he said eventually they're moving back to Raleigh. They don't foresee them staying there. The house is you know, it's going to be great. It's going to be beautiful. It's pristine. It's in a valley. Puts you a little bit in mind of like Petticoat Junction, I guess, if anybody remembers that one, where the whistle stops and everything is. There were 5 houses there that we worked on. A lot of these houses were protect this house. Gabby, we must protect. That's it. Thank you. Yeah, she's got a nonprofit there, and we worked with or for a girl there, Kelsey, and she had all 5 of these. She knew where every 2x4 was. So, and then a lot of times we would transfer back and forth the equipment and the supplies that they needed. But all in all, it was very enriching experience that one I suggest anybody would take if they had a chance. So, thank you.
Oh, man.
Oh, you're not going to sit up
Yeah,
there?
man. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Allison?
it's heart-wrenching to see something like that. On Tuesday, we went to B-Log school, and in the school, for shelving for the food or any kind of supplies needed, they took milk crates and zip tied them together as makeshift shelves. And on the stage, I worked with a lady by the name of Lynn from Tennessee, and we folded sheet after sheet, pillowcases, tried to get them in sets of 4s, labeled them, anything from twin to king, and we put them on makeshift shelves up there that was a sawhorse with a piece of plywood. And that lunchtime break that day was out on the stairs, and a gentleman and his wife pulled up, and she went on inside to start shopping, and I was talking to the gentleman, and he didn't really talk about what was going on there. He talked about that he came from Delaware, and when I told him where I was from, he said, well, then Frederick, he said, there was a truck stop along there somewhere. I said, yeah, Route 70 truck stop. He said, well, I bought my first Harley right there in 92, right alongside of it. And being kind of motorcycle people, I kind of connected there, and we talked about the Frederick Harley shop, and went on inside to talk to his wife, and she had some of the sheets that we had folded, and she said, this isn't for us. She said, I'm getting these for neighbors. She said, it did not affect us at all. She said, I'm trying to help out my neighbors. And that was Tuesday. On Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I was honored to work with Sandy. In the medical supplies, that they had just a little shed down in the yard that was like a medical center for them. And when you opened that door, it was like, wow, where do we begin? Tote tub after tote tub of things I've never heard of, from A to Z. I mean, we got it done. I mean, we were able to get in there and had an open floor after we were finished, labeling, stocking their shelves for what items needed to be where. And we accomplished that, and for when Chrissy returns, I hope she feels that she can find some of the items now that we took down a big tent that Ivan said that they really wanted to be taken down, so groups of us got together and took that down and rolled up for wherever it needed to be taken then. Getting there to and from the B-Log. Every day you saw something different. The bridge is washed out, the I-beams here, there, and everywhere, guardrails, personal items. Coming back from there on Friday, on one day we noticed that little tiny house off to the one side, that there was a little John boat sitting just like up what may have been their driveway. So a good possibility they were using that John boat to get from one side to the other to the good road to go about their daily needs, where we pull in our driveway with our vehicle, and there we are. On Friday coming back, well, like I said, you see something different every day. And across on the other side of the bank, right at the water, I saw there was a cross. Whether it was where a house was or where they may have found someone. But the Lord was there. On Thursday evening, we went up to Locust Branch, am I saying it? Laurel Branch Baptist, to have a cookout with the congregation there. Lovely time. Lots of stories. Christy was telling us about, she was the 5th generation that was from the church, and she pointed just over down the creek a little ways, a Cane River, that's where her great-grandmother had lived years ago. And that old house, and it was old, had survived, but it was right there in the midst of it all. After we ate, we were standing around talking, and I have it back on the pew, and I forgot to bring it up. I was standing there looking, and there was a puzzle piece laying there. I picked it up and took it along in when we had our church service. And the preachers that spoke, it just kind of came together because they talked about the piece of the puzzle that keeps everyone together. So after the service, I told Christy I found it, and she said, "You take that home with you to remember us." And I will. And I have it with us today.
Thank you for sharing your heart. God bless you. Now, Brandon was going to go, but Hope got sick last week, so you get off the hook, man, this time. They are here today, but next year. But Sandy?
Good morning. It was a wonderful week. River's Edge Ministry and the NALC disaster response teams know how to do this. They've been doing it for many, many, many years. But having said that, it was still very chaotic, as Charles said. Lots of shifting pieces. After you get there, you think what you're going to do ends up being something else. Excuse me. But God knows what he's doing. And so when we got there, I went to B-Log Elementary School, which is a condemned old school that was made into a community center for, as Allison described, supplies that were, and you walk in, it's very humbling because it's not like a Walmart or a Target. You walk in and it's concrete, floors that are broken, ceilings falling in, and milk crates stacked with toiletries and personal items and food, non-perishable food. And people would walk in and put their things in and walk out. No payment for it, just supplies as needed. On that ground was this double-wide shed that was used as, along with that tent that Allison talked about, was used as a makeshift. I'm getting a tickle in my throat right when I shouldn't be. Right? The tent and the shed were used as wartime kind of triage. And so I really, as a nurse for 42 years, was really moved by that a lot. Thinking about all the care that had to happen right there in this remote place that looks like a war zone. And so when we walked into the building, we met Chrissy, who runs this center. She's an LPN. She was going on a much-needed vacation the next day. And she said to me, she knew I was a nurse, she said, this place is a mess, but we're still using it. And we're going to use it until the government says we can't anymore. Because in wartime, which they had declared, I don't know what it's called, disaster or whatever, you can do whatever you want to help people survive. And that's what they did there. And I just couldn't stop thinking about all the work that many people did to help people in a very critical time of need. And so Allison didn't necessarily know what we were looking at, but I did. And I couldn't believe the materials that were in there. They were something that you would see in a trauma center. And it was all disheveled, and she wanted it organized, and she was leaving, and she really trusted me, I had just met her, to be able to do that. And it felt wonderful for Alice and I to get in there. It took us 4 days to go through the boxes and the supplies and get bins and label them and put all the supplies where they needed to be. And so one side is a storage area, and the other side is where she sees the patients that come in. So we cleaned all that up. We put some curtains up, put a little carpet in, make it a little homey, bought some pictures for the walls. And, you know, it just felt good to accomplish that. She hasn't seen it. She'll see it in 2 weeks when she gets back from her vacation. And her vision is, and you can pray about this, is that once the government says you can't keep doing this, I mean, she's dispensing medicine, she's doing things to help people in a time of crisis and need. She has a vision for telehealth, and she already has her Starlink, and making this be a community sort of a care center that she can operate out of with the help of a supervisor, nurse practitioner, a PA, a physician. So she has a vision, and now she has a clean, tidy, neat, organized space. So pray for Chrissy and how she's using that community. But the other thing I want to say is that there were people serving this week from ages 3 to 82. And everyone had something to do. God used them right where they needed them. The wheelbarrows, little baby wheelbarrows with the 3- and 4-year-olds picking up rocks, and all the way up to storing things in the cleaning up the storage areas and stocking shelves, to building, crawl space. I didn't want to volunteer for that one, where all the spiders were. There were crawl space jobs, and all kinds of stuff that could be done, in a myriad of talents that came together from 7 different states. Churches from 7 different states were there, and different denominations, and it was a beautiful time of community. And we were blessed because the people there, they're not bitter and angry. They're grateful and thankful. And Ivan, that you keep hearing about, volunteer firefighter, young man with 2 children and a wife, he was stuck in the fire station when the flood came. And he had to use an axe with his partner to get out on top of the roof of the fire station. And then he watched 3 houses just cave and people screaming for help. And he still has stress from that powerlessness that he felt. And he helps this community center now, his way of giving back. But there's ripple effects in the community. It's not just people whose houses and things were destroyed, not having flood insurance, who needs it in the mountains, but also jobs. People lost jobs, and people. There's just so much ripple effect that really impacted me too this week. So lots of prayers needed. I'm grateful to have been a part of it, and thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. May I get a...
Oh, yeah. I get this every day, all day.
Wow, after 40, no, okay. Thank you, Sandy. So, I'm only going to preach for 45 minutes, so don't get too excited here. Yeah, as everyone shared, I mean, you come away from that kind of experience changed, different. It's amazing when we step into God's mission, his mission field, and it's really his. He's there. He's a God of restoration. When we cry out, even in our disobedience, our own sin, he hears us, and he rescues us. When we're hurting, when we suffer a calamity, and they suffered, obviously, this catastrophic flood that is beyond just 1,000-year flood, if you hear the stories. But when you walk into that place, you come away again changed, which is a good thing. It's like heaven meets earth, because there's a healing presence that I shared with a group last week a little bit, that it's like the Holy Spirit runs through all of us and then binds us up together. And for me to go on these mission events, at times in my life especially, that maybe need a little bit of healing here, or a little bit of maybe softening the heart here, and maybe some physical healing. Like I don't have the best knees in the world, and so the Lord put me alongside my brother-in-law. He says, see, I'm going to put you on the ladder, up and down and up and down. So a little bit of healing there, but it's amazing. And when you meet folks there, and the folks you go with, it's like it's in your minds forever. We had an opportunity, as Allison shared, to go to Laurel Branch Baptist Church, and to see again Deacon Aaron, which we talked about last time, was there. And I was telling Sandy all the way there, I was just had this yearning to see, Brother Aaron. And I saw him, and he saw me, and just kind of, and big hugs, and two grown men crying like babies, That's never going to change. That's for eternity. It's powerful. And despite Sandy shared all these denominations and non-denominations together, it's all about one thing. It's Jesus Christ. It's the one that we follow this Holy Week. This Jesus who kept edging closer and closer to Jerusalem. A few days later, on Friday, be on the cross. It's all about Jesus. And that was really brought home to me. We had these Kairos moments every night, but brought home to me on Wednesday night at Laurel Branch, after our dinner and so forth. I was talking to a gentleman named Claude, and then he introduced me to a son named Ron. They'd been in the hills for, Ron was only like 40-some all his life, and Claude like 60 years or something, everything. They lost everything, yet they had everything. And Ron told a story, and this is a church that we worked on last time that was half gone. And they were continuing to worship in that. It was half gone, but Ron said, and he pointed over in the field. You see that bus over there? Big old bus, school bus. That bus was inside the church, lodged in the church, pressing up against the cornerstone. He said, the Lord must have done that, because it was that bus that kept the church from being completely washed away. Pressed against the cornerstone, you see. And he kept saying, and Sandy and I had an opportunity to talk and to pray together, And he said a couple, three times, you hear me? It's against the cornerstone. And who is the chief cornerstone? 1 Peter 2, verse 6, Jesus Christ. And this Holy Week, let's press up against the cornerstone. Not just any old cornerstone. He's the chief cornerstone. And with that cornerstone, everything else is built. And guess what we're called in Scripture? We're living stones. And God wants to put us up together again to restore, maybe in the midst of horrific floods or our own personal crisis, or we go in that mission field and we get We get worked on by the Holy Spirit. That's why Jesus went all the way to the cross at Calvary. And he suffered. And he died. He shed his blood on that torture device that's beyond human comprehension, what that is like. For us. He is a cornerstone. By his blood. By his broken body. Burnsville is being restored. Day by day. And I bet the Lord is working on each one of us somehow. Restoring us. But keep pressing into the cornerstone. Amen? Amen.